Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Mel from MelDidItHerself, and I'm a social service worker turned furniture refinisher, DIYer, small business owner, and content creator. I've learned everything I know about these industries thanks to people who shared their knowledge on the internet. So I'm paying it forward by bringing you my tips, lessons learned, and sharing my journey in this space with you. So thank you so much for being here, being curious, and being a lifelong learner like me. Let's hop into it. What is up, my friends and fellow busybees? Usually, when I talk about doing furniture makeovers on the podcast, I'm talking about the full piece and bringing it from a state of bleh to a state of yeah. But today, more specifically, that was so cringy, oh god. More specifically, I wanted to talk about sprucing up our furniture makeovers in a way that you may or may not have even thought to do in the past. It's a part of some pieces of furniture that might go unnoticed by some during the makeover process, since it typically serves more of a functional role in the furniture piece, so may not always be thought of during the design process, which is the drawers. Since they're hidden when your piece is sitting, I feel like it's a part that people don't tend to think much about, but it is still a big piece of real estate on your furniture, like in a dresser or a buffet. And I feel like it's a great place that you can really get creative with it, and clients really like the unexpected pop that it can have. It's like when you're a professional who is all proper and clean cut and then starts to let out their personality a bit and be a little rough around the edges when you get them in a one-on-one conversation, or they show you a silly tattoo that they got when they were younger. It's like a fun pop of personality that's unexpected, so it just hits a little different. And there's a ton of different ways that you can incorporate some personality into the drawers of a piece in different ways. Sometimes you might want to stick with the theme or style of the piece that's on the outside, but other times you might want to choose a style or a look that simply complements but doesn't necessarily match what you're already doing on the outside of the piece, so it really is up to you. And because you're here listening to this podcast, I know that you love and appreciate pre-loved, painted, and refinished furniture, which is why I wanted to let you know that I have a weekly newsletter that I know you'll love called the Friday Furniture Focus, where I highlight not only the recent furniture flips that I've done, but I also share a weekly furniture fact to learn more about the furniture that you're transforming, or a furniture fix with a tip to make your furniture makeovers go quicker or easier. There's also a furniture painter or refinisher featured each week with a Q&A to get to know them, their story, and their business. So if you're interested in receiving this, I'll add a link in the show notes, but you can sign up on my website, MelDidItHerself.ca. Just scroll to the bottom of the homepage and submit the form, and then keep an eye on your inbox every Friday for some furniture inspo to start the weekend off right. So, with all drawers that you get on any furniture piece, I recommend not only thoroughly cleaning them inside and out when you get the piece in your possession, but also just giving them at least a scuff sand to scuff up that older finish that's on it. More often than not, the drawers are made of wood, so this just brings them back to life and gets rid of any little stains or discoloration that may have existed on the sides and bottoms of drawers. Sometimes you see things like pen or pencil marks or other marks from items that may have previously been stored in them. So sanding them down quickly just gets rid of all of that, so it doesn't feel like the piece was pre-loved and it seems like they're closer to being brand new. Unless there's a really big pesky stain that I'm trying to get rid of, I'll usually use around 200 grit sandpaper for this step. Then, once I'm done sanding, I'll wipe the sanding dust away and give the drawers a wipe with a damp microfiber cloth again, just to get rid of any leftover dust or residue that may be lingering. You could also use a tack cloth for that. By that point, you can definitely just leave them as is if you'd like. For the most part though, I'll always add another step in, even if I don't intend on adding any other design elements to the drawers and just want to keep them plain. Since the drawers are often made of wood, as I said, and the wood can dry out over time, I'll typically add a furniture salve to the wood in order to moisturize it a bit and just bring it back to life. There's plenty of options for doing this, both scented and unscented. Some of my favorite products for this are using Big Mama's butter from Dixie Belle, specifically in the scent Orange Grove. I'm not a big fan of the other ones. I also use hemp oil from Fusion Mineral Paint or Howard's Feed-In Wax. And again, I'll link those in the show notes if you want to check out those products. So you can apply these with a brush or shop towels or even just a shop rag, like a piece of an old t-shirt. As long as it's lint-free, you should be good to go. I personally like to use my Annie Sloan chalk paint brush because it has natural bristles, so the products keep them really well moisturized, and I just use that one specific brush for all of those oil-based products, so I don't need to clean it out every single time. I just add enough product to cover all of the surfaces, and I wipe it in pretty well so that I know I covered the surface well. And then I'll usually leave the product on there for a while, maybe a few hours or even overnight, and then come back and wipe off any excess remaining on the wood that hasn't yet been absorbed. A word of caution though, or of guidance, I guess. If you're planning on doing this on a piece that already has a buyer in mind, like if you're doing a custom project, then I recommend checking with that person before you do it if you had planned on using one of the products that is scented specifically. The ones I mentioned all have a really nice light scent that are not meant to be overwhelming and are supposed to neutralize any mustiness or other odors that may exist in the furniture. But because some people do have sensitivities to scents, I always like to check with the person first because you never know. And then if and when a piece sells that I have used a moisturizing product on the drawers, even if it isn't one with a scent, I'll always give the buyer a heads up that it was put on there to bring the drawers back to life a bit, and then tell them if they plan on putting clothing in the drawers or any type of fabrics, just to grab a paper towel or a dry cloth or something like that and wipe them out first, just to get rid of any remaining residue that there may be so that it doesn't end up on their clothes. After I wiped the excess product away initially, there shouldn't be any left anyways, but I do like to say it just in case some happens to pop back up between now and then, in case changing temperatures or something like that affects it and kind of pulls it back out. Okay, great. So that is for plain but great looking drawers. But what if we want to add a little more pizzazz? One option is to add a drawer liner to the bottom of the drawer so that you have that added pop of a little sum when you open up the drawer. This is also a great approach to take if you happen to have an especially ugly drawer with one of those pesky stains that I mentioned that you just can't get out no matter what you do. And it happens. So instead of selling it looking ugly and less than ideal, add a drawer liner to freshen it up and your buyer will be none the wiser. What I love most about this approach is that there are literally millions of options for drawer liners because of just how vast your options are for what you use as a drawer liner. Yes, of course, you can look for things that are specifically marked and marketed as being drawer liners, but typically those end up being those foamy, kind of plasticky mats that you lay down so that your cups or cutlery or whatever don't slide all over the place. That works, but isn't quite the pizzazz that I had in mind. But no shade if that's what you like to use. But if you expand your mind and creativity a little further, you can use things like wallpapers or peel and stick wallpapers. You can use wrapping papers or stationery. Think of the wide array of colors, patterns, and photos that you could find. But also, and especially if you're wanting to add a textural element into the mix, you can also go to your local fabric store and find a fabric to use as a liner. Or better yet, hit up your local thrift store and try and find something that would work, like a curtain or a sheet or something that you could chop up into the size of the pieces that you need. There's honestly so many options. Hell, you could even cut up a shower curtain if you found one you really love the look of. So many different options, so think of how unique that would make your piece stand apart from the rest, particularly if you have a piece that's more common, like a black or a white dresser. Chances are there's probably other ones of those that are also available for sale in your area, but adding a fun liner that is an unexpected pop can make yours be just a little bit different, a little unique, and stand apart from the competition. My preferred method for adding drawer liners is to measure out the size that I need for it and measure twice and cut once. Word to the wise. If anything, I aim for the liner to be slightly bigger than I'll need because you can either trim it down once you have it in there with just a little razor blade or something, but even sometimes it can slide under the edges and it just gives it a perfect fit. I also recommend measuring every drawer every time and not assuming that the size of each drawer is exactly the same because you never know. Especially if you're working on an older piece that could potentially have been handmade, things were a little less uniform and perfect proportions didn't exist as readily, so take the extra minute or two to measure before you start cutting and using up your material. Once I have the pieces cut to the correct size, I go in personally with a spray adhesive that I have, and I spray it on, and then I like to move it around a bit so that it's more of an even, uniform layer of the product on the bottom of the drawer to avoid any clumping or extra moisture being under there contained in one spot. Because depending on what material you're lining with, I've had that affect the finish in the past. Particularly when I was using Mod Podge, I think I just had too much product and put too thick of a layer because it is a thicker consistency. But it got the stationery that I was using as a liner looking just really wrinkly and like wet paper essentially, and it wasn't very cute, which is why I switched to the spray adhesive, but I'm sure you could use Mod Podge and have it work as long as you use the right amount. Just make sure you're using a thin, even layer. So put your product on, then I like to let it sit for maybe 30 seconds or so it starts to get tacky, and then lay the liner down. If you want to have a bit more workability time, put the liner down right away after applying the product instead of waiting for it to get tacky, and you should be able to move the liner around a bit and get it into place a little bit more before it starts to dry. Then voila! Beautifully decorated drawer bottoms that add some fun flair to your furniture flip. I would recommend letting that product dry and cure up overnight before any use of the drawers. And it doesn't hurt to let them sit for the duration of the curing time of the rest of your piece too, which is 21 to 30 days once you've finished making it over. Another option that you can do to make the drawers match the look and feel of your piece after you've made it over, whether you stained or painted it, is to stain your drawers the same color or a coordinating stain color as the outside of the piece. This could mean doing the whole drawer in its entirety, including the inside and bottoms of the drawers, or even just the outer drawer sides, so it gives the piece a more cohesive look when you pull the drawers out. Whoa, drawers. I'd probably also recommend adding a protective layer after that to seal it in, like a polyurethane or polyacrylic. It will just make it look a lot more sleek and uniform, and again, protect the wood from any damage. The last thing you can do to add a little pizzazz and oomph to your furniture makeovers drawers is to do something fun to the outside of the drawer sides. Now, there's a few different options here. One of the easier ways to get a consistent, even pattern would be to use a stencil. The ones I like to use for this are the Redesign with Prima Stick and Style stencils because they come in a long roll of stencil that have a backing on it that you can remove and then they'll stick to your piece while you're using them, which is really helpful so you don't need to either hold it with one hand and paint with the other or bother to tape it down. And it's about the width of most drawer sides too, so it's really handy, kind of like covers the whole thing without even having to try. They're really quick and easy, and I've been able to reuse them a couple of times if I clean the paint up off the stencil after I use it, because the stickiness does last for a few uses, which is great. And they have a bunch of different designs. You can absolutely freehand a design on the sides, like adding a dot pattern or drawing something on like flowers or something like that if you have been blessed with the ability to draw. I have not. Or you can even add a geometric design with tape. If you listen to episode 20 of the podcast, where I outlined 6 products to make your furniture makeovers easier, you already know that I prefer to use frog tape to painter's tape whenever I'm doing a geometric design like this, because it always gives a crisp, seamless line. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, I'll be sure to link that in the show notes as well. Another pattern I did once, which was super cute, was making a scalloped pattern along the edge of the drawer side closest to the drawer front. So there's a cute little pop of color when you pull the drawer out. To do this, I just found a circular object that was the right size so that I could repeat the pattern as many times as I thought looked like it made sense. For the larger drawers, I believed I use a bottle of like Frank's hot sauce. And for the smaller top drawers, I just use a shot glass. Then you basically line it up so about half of the circle is over the edge, then trace the semicircle side by side until you reach the end of the drawer. You could also do this pattern along the top or bottom of the drawer side along the length of the drawer. There's so many options. When it comes to adding these fun pops of flair, just let your creativity run wild, and I guarantee there will be a buyer out there who appreciates what you did and is interested in buying it. And something you may not know about me, I love little motivational messages. They literally always get me fired up, and I keep a running list of ones that are especially catchy or speak to me in the Notes app on my phone. So I'm going to end every podcast episode with one of those that I've noted down over the years in hopes that you leave our time here each week feeling inspired, motivated, and ready to take on whatever comes your way this week. So this week's Mel's motivational message is: create the beauty you wish to see in the world. Super corny, I know you've probably heard it before, but that's just exactly it. With these furniture flips that you're doing, think about those spots where you can really just add that pop of beauty, that creativity, that certain thing that's going to set you apart from the rest. And those are the kinds of things you're going to end up being known for, and people are going to come to you for, because you had that innovation and that foresight to add those fun pops in when other people are just trying to whip out the pieces one after another and having them be just really plain and simple. So get inspired and create the beauty that you would like to see in the world. If you are going through Marketplace or wherever you market your pieces, what's something that you would see and be like, wow, that looks awesome. What a great idea. Look at that ingenuity. Like, think of the things that would stand out to you, because chances are, if you do this, whether it's just as a hobby or for your business, if you're listening to this podcast, I'm going to assume that you probably have your fair share of refinished and painted furniture in your feeds that you're seeing on the regular on Instagram, Facebook, whatever social platforms you frequent. So you've probably seen a fair bit of design over time, and you probably know what is a little bit different from the rest. So keep that in mind while you're in the design phase of your pieces, or if you're looking at a piece that you've completed and you just feel like it's missing a little bit of something like that. Create the beauty that you'd wish to see. Start looking around for inspiration. Check out your wallpaper stash that you have downstairs. Take a trip to the thrift store. Start browsing on websites that sell stationery. Actually, I will tell you, in Canada, less ideal because with the conversion rate and shipping, it ended up being pretty pricey. But if you're in the States especially, Society 6 has so many beautiful liners, and different artists can upload their designs there, and the quality of the paper is really nice and thick. So I highly recommend checking them out. They probably have sales going on too at any given time. I recently used one of theirs on this MCM nightstand that I have, and it's a beautiful, rich floral design, and I feel like it just elevates the piece so much when you pull it out. It's an unexpected fun pop, and although it might limit, depending on what pattern you use, your potential buyer, for the right person that comes around, they're going to see that and be like, that's something I didn't even know I wanted until I saw it. So try and have that foresight and do those creative projects. Ask yourself, how can I take this piece one step further from what I did before? Learn something new in the process, and I'm sure it will pay off. And even if you're not doing furniture flips, create the beauty you want to see in the world. Whether that's expressing yourself through fashion, through your home and how it's decorated, whether you interpret that to be kindness and extending kindness to strangers in your day-to-day life. Let the person in while you're waiting at the stoplight and they're trying to merge in. If somebody's in a rush behind you in the grocery store and they only have a couple items, let them go ahead of you. Add those little pops of kindness into your life. And even if it goes unappreciated because the person didn't notice or they didn't thank you, just know that you're adding that beauty into the world. You're adding that kindness and creating that kind spirit in yourself. And I guarantee you'll start to look at the world in a more positive light. You will notice when those acts of kindness are extended to you as well, because you'll be less inward facing and more outward facing and trying to look for the beauty and the kindness in the world around you. This world can seem like a dark place, especially if you're still listening to the news. If you're someone that has the news on 24/7, I would implore you to try and turn that off a little bit. But there really is so much beauty around us that we can tend to overlook because we're stuck in our own zones and we're focused on our next thing and where we need to get and what time is it, I'm going to be late, and just kind of fast forwarding through life. But truly, take a chance to slow down, smell the roses, appreciate the sun on your face. Like, do those little things that just bring a little bit of beauty and light into your life day to day, and I can almost guarantee that as a result, you will have a more positive outlook and things will improve for the better. All right, that's it for now. I appreciate your time, and I'll catch you guys next week.